Okay, got the recording going. And my notes for the session today are here in the chat. Not very fancy, but we'll just go through those. Let me get rid of my Slack making too much noise. Okay, Chris, great to see you. Let's go around the room and introduce ourselves. I will since we might not have the same order shown here. I'm Randy. I'm the lead maintainer of DDEV, and I'm in Colorado in the US. And very happy that we got the major version v1.22.0 out yesterday of DDEV. Marios, you go next.
Hello, everyone. I'm Marios. I'm from Greece. I've been a Drupal developer for more than 6 years. I've used DDEV extensively in the last 2 to 3 years for my local environments, and I'd like to, start contributing to it, but didn't really have the time to start working on issues without having much knowledge of how things work under the hood. So thank you for these meetings, those presentations. They're really helpful, and hopefully there'll be a nice push, to start contributing more.
Great. Tejas, go ahead.
Hi guys, so I am also a Drupal developer working into Drupal from past 9 years now, and currently associated with Acquia Inc., again a Drupal organization. I have been using DDEV quite recently, but was aware about DDEV as a development tool for Drupal and other PHP projects from long back. Alternatively, I have used Lando as well. So my anxiety towards learning Go was what also thought of joining this team and contributing back to DDEV.
Very cool. Alberto.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Alberto from Spain. I've been doing Drupal for more than 10 years. Until recently, I switched to another company. I still do PHP projects, and I've been using DDEV for like quite a few years now, like 4 or 5 years now. I like DDEV, I like Go, I'm testing in that, and I would like to be part of the community and contribute more.
Very cool. Bernardo.
Hey, I work as a Drupal front-end developer for Baltis. I've been using Drupal for about 5-6 years now. And yeah, I use both Lando and DDEV, but I'm looking to see how we can contribute more to the DDEV environment.
We're glad to have you. Glad to have you here. Chris, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm from Maine in the United States, in the Northeast of the United States. I've been a Drupal developer for about the last 18 years or so, since Drupal 4.7. We got on board with DDEV a couple of years back now, 2 or 3 years. And it just keeps helping us. So, much like with Drupal, time to give back. And I'm also on the advisory board for DDEV. So I'm just very involved and happy to have this opportunity to try to learn a little Go.
Very cool. Miro.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Miro Michalička. I'm located in Slovakia right now, and I'm although I was working as a Drupal engineer, I'm currently working as DevOps engineer for the past 4 or 5 years, and we are using DDEV to build our local development platform with all tooling around DDEV, and I'm actually using opportunity to contribute to DDEV to improve my Go skills. Thanks.
Great. And Zaire, is that how you say it?
Yes, yeah. I am Zaire. I am from India. I have been I am new to DDEV a little bit, and Drupal as well. Before that, I was working on PHP projects related to WordPress. Yeah, hoping to contribute to DDEV community. Thank you.
What time is it in India right now? It's about 12 hours off for us. About 8 p.m.
It's 7:40 now.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming in the evening like that. I sure wish, I'm glad it works. I'm glad this time works for India. I sure wish it would work for the Pacific. But it, like you got to choose a time if you're going to do live things, and my goodness, you can't do it so it works for Europe and it works for Japan and New Zealand and stuff. But we record it anyway. So I apologize to those of you in the Pacific region. Thanks for watching it later, and sorry that we can't figure out how to do it at a good time for you. Did I miss anybody? We got everybody? Let's go ahead and take a look at, I put the link to my notes in the chat. I will put it there again because I think on Zoom it doesn't show. I think it doesn't show. Oops, now I've lost where the chat is. There's the chat. I think if you join late, you don't see the links that were earlier there. So let's go ahead and just go through these notes, and you are absolutely welcome to go through this with me. Especially if you've already got some of the things installed, that will be great. Obviously we're going to DDEV is we're going to talk more about DDEV architecture in a different session, but DDEV is a hodgepodge of a number of technologies orchestrated by a Go binary. So the Go, I want to call it a fat binary, but that's a formal term that isn't correct. But the Go binary that compiles for each operating system and each architecture is compiled from the same source code. Rarely there are a few things that are done differently for different operating systems or architectures, but very few. And Go then orchestrates things using Docker Compose and Linux containers. So there's a whole batch of different technologies, but today we'll be talking about the Go wrapper that is a fairly big wrapper these days. Originally it was just a thin wrapper on Docker Compose, but now trying to make things easier for lots of people, it's got lots of things to do. So so to get Go, I'm going to share my screen here. If I can figure out how. So I don't often use two screens, and I have a monitor hooked up today, and then I get all disoriented having too many screens and not knowing what to do. And it starts showing on the upper screen, and I don't know what to do with that. Some of you have 5 screens in front of you, I know, and know exactly what to do and have it set up exactly the way you want it. And I need to learn how to do that, but I haven't. Sorry. Oh, I know what happened. The I accidentally put the disk, I accidentally put the Zoom in its own window. And then I couldn't find it anymore. So I'm going to share my whole screen. And there you can see my screen. And I will see if I can get that out of the way. Okay, so now you can see my screen. Is it big enough? Are you able to
Yes.
see it? Okay.
Yes.
So, all right. So, and you're probably seeing that, which you don't want to see. Okay, so here is, I'm going to work on a Mac today. Some of you are on Mac, some of you are probably on Linux, some of you are probably on WSL2. It works everywhere that you want it to work, and it basically, all of this works the same. So to start out, and like I say, you're welcome to follow along. The first thing that you need is you need Go. And if you go to the Go page about installing Go, you'll find that it's not very hard the way they say to do it. But it's a bit of trouble, and they don't even mention the easiest way to do it, which is Homebrew. So on both, what I do, so you can just follow the instructions here. You can download what they say to download, and then you can install it the way they tell you to install it. And that's fine. But then you have to do that for every minor release if you want to. And I prefer to just brew, install, Go. Usually what I would really do is brew, install, Go, Golang, CI lint, like that. And of course I've got it installed, so it doesn't make any difference. And it's going to do an auto update, and it's going to find that it's already there anyway. But I get 4.1.1 in the deal, huh? Oh, and I guess I didn't have Go 1.20.6. Maybe that, yeah, usually the minor releases, actually usually the major releases don't cause any trouble of Go. It's been a couple of versions since we used a brand new thing, but we do try to keep up with the major version of Go. So we're set up to use Go 1.20. When 1.18 came out, I think it made a huge difference by allowing us to embed files. So that's the installation, and that's what I do on Linux or WSL as well, as I use Homebrew. And on Homebrew, Homebrew is not that great on Linux, but it's a very easy way to install Go, so I just do it. So if I do Go version, now I have it. And DDEV uses make to build, and you on Mac, that's always there already. On Linux, you may have to sudo apt install build essential, or just install Mac. How many people here are not using Mac? I guess that's quiet. So I guess everybody's on a Mac, so we'll just be comfortable with our environment here. So if I do a make here, which having installed Go and having make already installed like it is on the Mac, or at least I think it is always on the Mac. I'll bet you that all of you have make already there. You can install it with Homebrew, or maybe it only comes with the developer tools. I'm not sure, but you can once you've checked out DDEV, you can do make, and it will build the current architecture for you. You can also build any other architecture, but we don't need to go there. You know, like I could say make Darwin AMD 64, and I could build the Intel version of DDEV but you see, it tells you where it's putting it. So that's where our build just went. And if I do, if I do that, I will get the version that I just built. So that's the first step, is just building like that. So yeah, Pedro says he's not sure how he got make. Maybe it's always there, but maybe it's not. Make is a standard thing everywhere, but on a fresh WSL2, it does not. On a fresh WSL2, it will not have make, and on a minimal Ubuntu, it won't have make. And so you can do the build essential or just apt install make, or you can brew install make. Make is a classic build tool from the 1980s. I thought that I would never see it again. Of course, I used it for building C code in the 90s, but I thought I would never see it again until I came into the Go world, and lo and behold, they were using make. And make is not a, let's just take a look at the, make is not the friendliest build environment of the world, but DDEV uses this make file to tell you where to build, and you don't need to know how this works. It would be unusual for you to have to muck with this, but the way make works, let me choose a simpler thing here to look at. The way make works is you have a target, like test DDEV app here, and you have dependencies like those. So it'll run the dependencies first, and then it'll run the action that you have there. So, and these dependencies, of course, are recursive, and that's where make gets interesting. Anyway, the point is, we just use make, and make tells us where the file is. And now that I've built it, I can just what I do. I usually symlink the built version into user local bin, but that's probably you could do anything you wanted to. You could manually run your built DDEV, but probably the easiest thing is to go into your bin directory, and your bin directory is typically in your path in many environments. And if it isn't, you can add it to your path. So I could do an ln-s like that. No, that's not going to work. Sorry. building/workspace/DDEV/ so there's the full path to my DDEV, and now I have that version in there, and I can just now type DDEV --version and get the same thing. So when you're working on it, like I say, you can use the explicit versioning if you want to, like that. But the problem is, since we all have DDEV in our fingers, we accidentally will type just DDEV blah, 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 and use the wrong binary. And then we don't know what we're doing. So Alberto asked if editing or changing the make file is something that you change. And there are some things that you would change using the make file, but I don't mess with it very often. Yeah, I messed with it recently because something had broken with our make docs. You can look at the make docs locally and look at the document, run the document build locally, and there was something wrong with it, and I fiddled with it, but that was a few weeks ago. So Normally, you're just using it. I just was pointing out why make exists and what it does and where the make file is. So what we've done so far is we've built DDEV and we know where it's built to and it's in our path. Any questions on that part? Comments? Anything else? Anybody still out there? Glad you are. Good.
Just would like to ask a few things regarding make. So I see makedocs.yml in the repository. Is it something sort of GitLab.yml that we have wherein we add the steps that we want for building a particular project and then make takes it as a reference and then runs all the commands inside that?
You know, I apologize. My hearing isn't that great. And we speak different versions of English. Can you just slow it down a little bit?
Sure. So my query was regarding make. I see makedocs.yml file in the DDEV repository, right? Just now you mentioned about it.
Yeah, the make file is right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So does the makedocs.yml file has all the steps that are needed to build a project?
Oh, okay. So are you talking about the docs, make docs?
Yeah.
So you're talking about make docs serve, I think. And that will build the docs and let you view them. And it's going to show us here how to do that. And then we're going to have, so this is great about contributing to the docs. And I think we showed this the other day when we did the one on the docs. This lets you run the docs and see exactly what they look like right on your system. So there we are, and we're doing exactly, you can see my browser, right?
Yep.
So there it is. And so I'm going through my built, you see this is at 127.0.0.1. And so yes, that's exactly what's going on. Since we have the make docs serve, yet that's just a shortcut, you know, like we could have given a script or something like that, but that's just a shortcut to let you run the docs on your own machine easily.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah. I was getting confused with make docs as a part of make tool. It's not.
No, it's no. Make MK docs is a completely separate thing. And we do have a target for it in the make file that lets you run make docs locally with everything set up for you.
Got it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately named project, given that we're talking about make files.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
called make docs, and they're completely unrelated.
Yeah, they're unrelated, and yet there's still a make docs runner inside the make file. So yeah. But, you know, I mean, there's so many things, there's so many different technologies in play in all these things that we touch in tech, that getting all the layers to understanding all the layers is pretty hard. So, you know, you try to find your way around. Now, there are a few things that you should know about Go. I guess we should bring up, I most often use Golang. This is Golang. It's an IDE. If you are a PHP Storm user, it's just like PHP Storm. This is done by JetBrains, and it looks and feels like PHP Storm, and that's one of the reasons why I've always liked it. You see, because I installed a new version of Go, it's messed up, and I have to add the correct setup for the Go root. But Golang is just another IDE, and VS Code is just another IDE. And how many of you use? I imagine you all use an IDE, but are you using VS Code, or is PHP Storm or JetBrains stuff your friend, or what?
VS Code is my friend, yes.
VS Code is your friend. Okay,
VS
good.
Code.
VS
Yes.
Code.
Yep.
We'll look at VS Code in a minute as well. And if you're, like if you're a JetBrains person, then Golang is pretty easy, but it costs money. They do have a free month on it. If you're a VS Code person, you're all set and you don't have any trouble with that. Yeah, so so Pedro says he has PHP Storm, but he has everything set up with. You have PHP Storm, but you use VS Code, or you have VS Code set up like PHP Storm, or you have PHP Storm set up like VS
So
Code?
I use PHP Storm mainly, but when I need to switch or whatever, I have a Drupal alias for the VS Code with everything that Drupal needs. I guess I was wondering if Go has something like that. There's like a recommended profile to use VS Code with Go.
That's actually a great question. One of the absolutely wonderful things about Go compared to PHP is there is only one way to format it in general. Okay, so it always uses tabs. It always uses the same indentation. It always uses the same format for curly braces. It's amazing. You don't have, there's no argument to have. There's no nothing. It is just done the way Go format says. GoFMT is what it's called, GOFMT. It's just done the way GoFMT says to do it. And so you don't have to argue with anybody about anything at all, which is absolutely wonderful. Like, especially coming from the PHP world. And both Golang and VS Code will happily follow your restrictions about how that's done. And out of the box, they typically do what's already required to do it. I have trouble. My biggest trouble is going back and forth between Windows and Mac, like running, going over to WSL2 and using the right keystrokes there. And I haven't been able to get keystrokes, and you got the control versus the command key that drive you nuts. But that's just the factor of switching tools or switching environments. That's just the way it is, and you have to live with it. But all of these will be happy to do your imports correctly. They'll create your imports for you. They'll format all the things that you want exactly the way they should be, and they'll do debugging for you. So it really takes nothing to do that. And I'll show a quick debug session in just a minute, because to me, debugging is the fundamental tool of any developer in any language on any platform. It's just what you have to do, and it's the way it is. Where are we here? So just some best practices, some comments about formatting. Like I say, there are no choices to be made, and GoFMT is the tool that tells everybody how Go is supposed to be formatted, and it'll fix the stuff for you as well. But whenever you do a PR on DDEV, it will check to see that those are in the correct format. There are plenty of things that will compile, but that don't meet GoFMT's requirements. And when you do so I can do, I didn't show you this. Oh. If I do a make Golang CI lint, that will check to make sure that all the linting is correct. and show you if there's any problems. So if I usually it doesn't take this long, but we just changed Go version, so it's rebuilding the cache. Probably if I add a space in here, would probably still compile. Oh, did you see that? I added a couple spaces there, and when I go back here, the IDE has already fixed it for me. It won't let me do it the other way. But if let's see, I should be able to do that though and break everything. And now if I do a make, it'll break. And if I do a make Golang CI lint, it'll show me the same class of problems and problems that I created from that. So Golang CI lint is what's used in the GitHub actions that do a test when you check in your code. So everything's expected to pass Golang CI lint. I have my pre-push command set to run Golang CI lint. And just in terms of social things, if you want to do a new feature on DDEV, do bring it up in an issue before doing the feature so that you get the context and that kind of thing. When you're fixing a bug that you already understand the bug, an issue is good. An issue isn't required the way we do it. But an issue is good because it may help you to understand the context behind the problem that you're trying to solve that bothers you. If we go to the DDEV docs, we'll go to the real DDEV docs here. If we go to the DDEV docs and the development tab here, the building, testing, and contributing tells you many ways to do what you need to do with or without a build. And a lot of these things don't show the build. You all probably know about Gitpod, and Gitpod is a great way to test and to work on a PR, and that's discussed here. I do ask you, it helps me if you use a branch when you're creating a PR. It helps me if you use a branch like this, because as you can imagine, I have many branches from different times and that kind of thing. And when I can see their date and the user, then it helps me to know, helps me to find my way around. So that's a request. A few people do that, and I appreciate it. Not that many. I think the rest of so I think the rest of this is about building images, which is a separate topic, and I think we probably have that down for a later time. Go back to Golang here. So when you need to run you need to run something and try it out. For example, let's take this this file here, which is this file is the implementation of DDEV debug config YAML, which is a little helper file, and I should be able to just run that like this, and it will ask me what I'm going to do with it. I don't really care about most of these things, and I don't want to. I know what we need to do is we need to run the main.go. So if we run the main.go, it will create a new profile for us here. This is just like what you would have in PHP Storm. And this is the output that you would expect. So we just ran it from inside the IDE. And I could now just change that to say I wanted to do debug config YAML as the program arguments. Yeah, I probably changed the name so I could find it again. And now if I run it, it'll run DDEV debug config YAML, but it needs to have an active place to run. So we will run it in D10. And now it's doing what DDEV debug config YAML does. And now if I wanted to debug, I can just put a breakpoint here and hit the debug thing instead, and it compiles it and it runs it, and I can immediately do the debugging that I need to do. So there we are, just able to step through to see everything that's going on. Here's our app information that will look familiar to you. So that's essentially running and debugging in a nutshell using Golang. And it's very, very similar to PHP and PHP Storm. The difference is that PHP debugging is a whole network protocol that is pretty complicated. So you have to have your PHP FPM doing the right thing and listening, and contacting your IDE and all those kinds of things, which in Go, you don't have any of that going on. You can just say, oh, go debug it, and it'll go debug it. It's not a fancy network protocol like Xdebug is. So any questions before we try the same thing with VS Code? Or comments or anything else? And of course, there are plenty of helps for both VS Code and Golang. And as with any tool, it takes some time to learn how to use them, but it's, you just have to be patient with yourself, and you'll get there. So let's do the same thing now with VS Code. With VS Code, you have to install a couple of add-ons. Let's see if I can find the right things. The extensions. So you have to install the Go extension to do this well. And if you're on Windows with WSL2, then you need the remote development extension as well. And the dev containers is super interesting, but I won't go there. That lets you actually do things inside DDEV's containers. But it's a powerful add-on to VS Code. But what we need for what we're doing right now is we need the Go extension, and I think we need I thought we needed the debugging extension as well, but maybe that's not true. So here we are, and DDEV comes with a launch.json built for you. The launch.json, if you're not familiar with VS Code, is where you do all the twiddly things that we would just do with menu type stuff in Golang. But if you get used to these, then it's no big deal. But DDEV comes with a launch.json built for you. So the first one that's here is just debug DDEV start. So if I want to see what's going on with DDEV in the start section, which is probably where the most things happen. Sometimes I have to change the working directory, the CWD. And you see there's other examples here like DDEV snapshot and DDEV describe. So we can do all these. So I'm going to use the debugger, and this is it's kind of a multi-step debug, so it's a little confusing sometimes, but I can choose which thing I want to do based on what's in my launch.json. And I'm going to just run DDEV debug start, and I'm going to actually make a breakpoint in DDEV start. So we'll just make a breakpoint here. And now I'm going to use the run and debug, and then you have to do the second step, which is say start it, which is a little awkward. And then it'll just and I had a breakpoint in my main.go, so I'm going to remove those breakpoints, and now I'm going to use F5 to continue. And now here I am in start, so I can step through this F10, different set of things, and I can step through and see exactly what is going on and inspect the contents of app and that sort of thing. It's got different keystrokes and it's got somewhat different models, but VS Code works great too. We were talking, Marios and I were talking before most of you got here about developing on a WSL2, and Golang really works great on Windows with WSL2, assuming that everything's in the WSL2 file system, but it fails when you get to certain complex kinds of things. And PHP Storm does too. And so I probably need to learn how to use VS Code and consider using it. So Bernardo, thanks for coming, and we'll see you later. And Pedro, yes, you do need to install Go, please, but it'll do it for you. It's about to offer to do it for you right there. Now, Bernardo asked, why use latest or stable on the URL? I assume he was talking about the docs. Latest, that's a good question, because latest gets you the current commit of DDEV docs, which is sometimes not the same as the current stable. Stable gets you the current stable. And so Pedro, I think it will just do your Go please for you, and you should be done. And so the Go files, the most important Go files, Pedro, are in PKG DDEV app, but there are many scattered all over. The ones in CMD are the ones that are associated with a command, and the ones in PKG are the ones that are associated typically with functionality. Sometimes there's some crossover about that, but let's just take a look at that. We've got a minute to do that, and feel free to speak up. I'm going to switch back to Golang right quick, and we'll take a look at those. I'm just slightly more comfortable with Golang and less likely to get lost. So let's look at the organization of the code here. So almost all of the logic or the functionality of DDEV is in the PKG directory, and the biggest, heaviest piece of that is in the one called DDEV app, and that has that's the package where the start functionality and all that kind of thing is, where that lives. The commands themselves live in CMD DDEV and then in CMD. So you find that these are just these are Cobra command definitions. Cobra is the library that we use for command line flags and args. And so each one of these, some of them are very, very simple. Some of them are slightly more complex, but each one of these is just an implementation that typically calls other things, but the implementation of the command is here. And yes, DLV is what you want next, and DLV is the debugger, and that's the Pedro. That's the thing about VS Code. The first time is it always wants you to do a whole bunch of things, like DLV and Go PLS or whatever Go PLS is. Whereas those things are built into Golang. But once you've done that, you're all set with VS Code. Yeah, Chris, you just did install all and it did it. And that's, sometimes I get them one by one and sometimes I apparently don't hit install all. But at least after the first time around, you're pretty much set on that. And nobody here is using WSL2, I don't think, which does require the remote extension package.
I'm using it.
Oh, you are? Okay. So if you're using WSL2 in Windows, then you need that you need that extension that's in the in my notes there. So the
I already installed Go in the today morning, and I already installed all those extensions.
yeah. So you're all set. The one thing that you want to make sure that you do with VS Code, with running VS Code on Windows, when you're working in WSL2, is you want to make sure that you don't accidentally work using not the remote extension pack. So that's, you can, because VS Code is so powerful and can run so many places and do so many things, you've got that set of issues there. So a lot of times when you have a particular problem, like you've discovered that DDEV has a typo or that something happens right after a snapshot, you can just use either of these tools and, you know, you can just find in files and you say, I want to find snapshot or something, and I want to only look in Go files, and you'll find your way to the right things. Testing is the one thing that we haven't looked at yet, so we should do that. But you'll find your way to the territory that you want to look at by just searching for something that's in that region. Because I know how complicated it is to land in the middle of some huge code base, and you don't know how to find your way around. But just using the find to find things, and then using like list snapshots, I can say find usages here, and VS Code has the same thing. And then I find that that's used in snapshot.go, and it's used here, and it's declared. I can find all the things, and I can just click through to list snapshots, and there it is, and that's the beauty of an IDE. So Pedro, the reason that you're on VS Code, let me show you what's wrong with your thing. You're saying that I'll show you what's wrong with your situation. Let me stop this. In your launch.json, you're using the default, and lo and behold, it's saying that the CWD should be D9 simple. You can just make that be something that is a project that you have. And then you'll be fine. So that's the problem with launch.json, is that you have to know to go over there and fiddle with that stuff. And of course, the default configurations that you have are the ones that are going on. Alberto, go ahead.
Yeah, I play around with a bit with VS Code in the past and then with Go, and there's an interesting feature as well that comes with the extension in Go. So if you click there on the little laboratory button that you have on the left menu.
Okay. This one here.
Yeah. So here it can open all the tests that you have created.
Yeah.
And then you also can, and then you can also run the debugger directing one of the specific tests. So I think that
that's
cool
great. Let's actually do that. Let's run a relatively simple test. Let's try list. Here's the test itself. We'll just try test DDEV list, and we'll see if this works. We'll try running it. And I didn't know about that laboratory thing, but this is
you can click on in the page on the right icon, and then it opens the file.
You can do that too. Yeah,
and then you can run, and you can also debug it.
So here we just ran this test. We ran test DDEV list, and it passed, and it was that easy to do. You can also do it from the command line, and it tells you how to do it in the docs on the developer tab in the docs. So you can do it from the command line, but if I want to debug here, which I assume this is
the next icon, you can open the page, the last one here. Yeah. And then you can set a breakpoint and debug.
So if I go, let's see, that's a pretty simple test. I don't know whether I like that very much. Let's try test without dir, and let's set a breakpoint in it. And we will try.
You also have the option on top of the function name. Also.
Yeah, you can do it right here.
And debug on top is the run test, debug test. You have it also there.
Yeah, I'm looking for it.
In between the line 20 and 21, there is this run test, debug test.
There it is. Yeah. So I want to debug it because I want to find out what's going wrong with it. And so, like, you've done a push up. You've done a push up, and it failed one of the automated tests, and now you need to run it automatically. And
you have now the debug session there.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I already have it. Okay, good. All right. So I can do an F10 to step over, and there we go. Yeah, I didn't see that it stopped. I saw the error down below. It looked like an error. It was red, but it wasn't. So there we are. We're stepping through, and we can see exactly what's wrong with the test. So, and we can work our way through. So what I typically try to do is I try to run, when I'm doing a PR, I try to run the tests that I know will break if something's wrong. And that's all the ones I try to run. I may not try anything. Like if I know that the functionality is good, I may push it up. The running a whole test run locally just takes way too long, and it's too painful. It can take and it might take a little bit of setup. So I don't recommend that you try to run all of the tests. Like, don't do a make test locally unless you have a spare machine and you care. And it's a lot harder to see. That's what the CI is for. But then when you actually have broken a test, you do have to go and run that test. And here we are doing that. So that's great. So yeah, so we've done, we've run a test. It's just as easy to do in Golang. I'm glad you pointed out to me the laboratory, because I didn't know about that. That's a really nice way to find your way to stuff. What I typically do is I try to find the actual test, and I do that with, like in Golang, I do navigate, symbol, and test DDEV list, like that. And that's how I would find my way to a particular test But I like the laboratory. That's good. And of course, running it from right here is great too. So, and I thought that in previous versions, right click for more options. There we go. I can say debug test here. So we're about out of time, but we've got a second for questions, reactions, thoughts, next steps. Feel free to speak up.
So a few things, Randy. Let's say now I have set up my Go environment, right? When I do it with Drupal, we ensure that all the developers are having same PHP version, and other dependencies are also same, using a composer file and using a Docker environment like DDEV and Orlando. Here in Golang, how do we ensure that my Go version is equivalent to all the other devs' Go version as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. Go is so much easier than all those other things. So Go builds a binary that contains everything in it. And it builds it for the platform that you want. So if you use make to do the build, it will build the same and result in the same behavior on any platform. So that's why we have that very specific way of using the make file, is because you can use make that way on any environment and it'll work out for you. Does that answer the question you're asking?
So irrespective of what version I am using in Go?
What's that?
Irrespective of what version my machine is installed with?
You know, the reality is, if you're using Go 1.20, there's not going to be any differences. I recommend using the latest Go, and we always keep up with the latest Go version. But in general, if you did a build right now with 1.19 or 1.20 anything, you would come out with the same behavior. It might complain about 1.19 at this point. I don't remember. Maybe we put that in the requirement, but you know, which 1.20 you have doesn't matter. And of course, when it's actually being used, it's going to be built in CI, and it's going to be built in a consistent way, and it's built with make. So you don't have anything to worry about there.
But for us as developers, just kind of in general, get the latest version of Go.
Yeah. And DDEV will always keep up with the latest version of Go. There's 1.21's about to come out. It has some interesting new features in it, but I don't think there's going to be anything that changes what we do on this time around.
So I have another quick question. And I think you said that maybe this is another topic, but VS Code came up and asked me about, do you want to run in the dev container, or do you want to run even better, copying the dev container to a Docker volume or something like that? I tried both of those and they didn't work. Could you just say, like in the 1-minute version, what is that stuff and what does it even mean?
So I think that stuff is for when you want to work inside a Docker container. Oh, no, dev container is a different thing. So dev container is the guts of what GitHub Codespaces is built out of. So dev container is for when you want to work and your whole environment is in a container, in a dev container. So I think if you go to if you either try out GitHub Codespaces, or you go to devcontainers.org, maybe. No. VS Code is really into the dev container thing, and you don't need any of that. But here's devcontainers.github.io, and this explains all that stuff, but it's not relevant. Well, I am not familiar with how it's relevant to anything we would be doing unless you're working on GitHub Codespaces. So if you're using DDEV in GitHub Codespaces, for example, which works very well, you would use, there's a dev container.json that we provide that sets that all up for you and runs that. And you can do that with VS Code too, but unfortunately, I don't understand it all. But the containers.dev does explain some of this.
Okay, cool. It's interesting. It said this project contains a dev container setup.
And it
you wanna
does,
use it? And so
because
it does. Okay,
for GitHub code spaces.
that's
Yeah.
why. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
And maybe you can use it, maybe with VS Code, you can use it anyway.
It got me really far. It looked like
Yeah.
it worked, and then it failed with like, it couldn't clone the DDEV repo because my SSH keys weren't in the
Yeah.
dev container. So there must be some
Yeah.
way to do that, but
Yeah. And I don't know whether you get value out of that, but the VS Code folks are really into that. So it's, yeah. So T just says it built easily, but had an error without any error. So are you
right?
doing?
Isn't
Well,
I'm telling you, Randy, the fact that DDEV is so bug free is just wild. Like, well, I hit make and it actually worked. I must be doing something wrong. No, it actually, that's just how it's supposed to go.
It must not have done anything. It must not have done anything. Yeah, exactly. So, well, happy to, I know that this is all just touching the edges of the, touching the edges of the tooling and that kind of thing, and that there's way more to understand and to get familiar with and to master. But I so appreciate all of you taking the time to take a first step here. And if you have something that annoys you about DDEV, or even a typo in an error message or whatever, it'd be great to have you use these techniques to figure it out, or even just create a bug yourself and then fix the bug. It would be great to have you do that, and if you do it sooner, a little bit of it will stick, rather than waiting until next year, kind of thing. I know I've used up all of our time, but I thank you, and happy to, if you have anything else on your mind, happy to hang around and talk about it, but I don't want to hold you longer, and I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, I think I have one more question. When you are working on multiple branches, how do you switch between branches?
Yeah, just to
So you just change the gate and run everything in the same workspace?
I always switch to a regular terminal, but I just do a git checkout like that, and I check out the one that I want, and that's all I do. And you can do that. Both of the IDEs know how to do that just fine. Golang, you can go down here. If you find your way to it, you can go down here and you can change branches there.
Yeah, I'm more wondering if you are developing, for example, some new feature as we did for this global config, and then the config sticks there. If you check out different branch, then the compliance that, oh, there is some extra config or something.
Yeah, I change branches all day, and I don't have any real problem. The problem that you could have, of course, is the same as you'd have anywhere. And that is that and that is when you leave code behind. You always have to check in your code and push it up and put it into the PR before you lose it when you're switching branches. So that's the problem. So action items for the next call, I will when I send out the reminder about the next one, I will add action items to that. I don't think, I mean, your action items, there's plenty to work on here, plenty to know and plenty to do, and would love to have you experiment with them. but our next call next week is our next call is about running automated tests locally. So we actually got started on that this time, but we'll spend more on it next time. So your preparation for next time is run some tests, debug some tests, step through some tests, and so VS Code wants you to install a new version. Just say yes. When VS Code tells you it wants to install something, just let it. It's you know, all that stuff is built in on the JetBrains ones, and it's separate and external on VS Code, and that makes VS Code infinitely configurable, but you're always answering questions like that.
So Randy, in that case, is there any tool for Go like we have in PHP? We used to run Composer update or like to update the packages of PHP.
Absolutely, yeah. The vendor directory is managed by GoMod. So in DDEV, those are called modules, and the vendor directory is full of them. And so that's something you probably just want to take a quick look at is Go modules. Go review how Go modules work a little bit. So. All righty, well, I will let you go, and thank you so much for coming, and we will see you next week. And we'll put this recording up there. Thanks so much.
Next week is 1st of August. In that list, it says August 8th, the next one, right?
Yeah, so I must have, I thought I was going to be gone next week. So it's in 2 weeks. Yeah, I thought I was going to be gone next week. Thanks for pointing that out. I might have set up the wrong thing.
Thank you for the session today.
Thank you all so much. All righty.
Bye.
And of course, we can talk about this anytime in Discord.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Bye.